Now, moving on to our next story, we'll be talking about the Russia-Ukraine crisis, of course, and in a rather sad development, a 23-year-old Zambian student who was studying nuclear engineering in Russia has died while fighting in Ukraine. Now, Nathan NYIRENDA, until his death on September 22nd, 2022, was a student of Moscow Engineering Physics Institute. Now, following his death, Zambia's Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation Minister, STANLEY disclosed that Zambia has written to the Russian government to explain how NYIRENDA, who was serving his sentence in a jail in Moscow, was recruited and sent to fight in the battlefront in Ukraine.
Now, joining us this morning is ARMYTAGE M MUMBWALI from Zambian Network for Human Rights Defenders. Good morning and thank you for joining us, ARMYTAGE.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
All right, now, so this is rather unfortunate news as regards Nathan's death. There have been conversations as to the approval of prisoners being conscripted to the army, and an investigation was conducted recently to talk about how a lot of them were promised freedom or exchange of money in some cases for their lives. Could this in any way be what may have happened to Nathan?
It's very difficult to start with the reason why someone is a soldier, because if you look at the circumstance in which the young man was able to be recruited, he did not go and apply as a soldier in Russia. He went for studies. It's from the studies that during his stay, then he was found guilty of a criminal offense that led him to be detained for a prosecution process, which later gave a case of detention or imprisonment for a sentence of 9 years, 6 months. So the question is about the circumstance in which he joined the army. We know for sure it's very common for Russia, America, and other countries that can recruit foreigners into the army. It's very possible that he was recruited from prison, but the question is, was he volunteering? Did he choose? Was he forced? Is it a legal process or an illegal process?
Exactly. I mean, we know that there is nowhere in the Constitution that says that once you're indicted for a crime, you're automatically, recruited into the army. So another question, another thing that bogs the mind is why it took so long for the Zambians to know about the death of the student who died in September. Some people say that they were trying to hide it because, of course, he wasn't recruited legally. What do you think about that?
Absolutely. If you look at September, this is November. It's a long period of time, more than a month or about a month. But also the question is about what was the agreement? What does the procedure and the law say? How many hours should it take to inform the family or to inform the government? Is it the government that was delayed to be informed, or it was the family was aware about everything? So the question is still because of the circumstances in which he was recruited. Did he volunteer? Was there a procedure? Was there communication? Was there an assurance of information and updates? So the question is still around whether the right agreements were made, because it's common when you're in prison, they can give you an option whether to serve the army, because it's a gamble that they're going to assure you that when you are recruited as a soldier, you're going to be assured of the freedom, you're going to be assured of release, especially after the war is over. Sometimes they come to the prisoners and assure them that when you work for the army, we're going to pay you and we'll pay you the family if in case you die, and they are going to promise good things. And so everyone will have an option to decide whether to be in prison for 9 years or be free in the next 2 weeks, and also be in war for about 2, 4, 5 months and then be released. So
well, but then again, ARMYTAGE, apologies for interrupting.
So really, we think that it's a question of was the circumstance assuring communication after the death.
Right, but talking about compensation now, I mean, the debate is that Putin recently signed in a law that once you're indicted for a crime, you are prone to being recruited into the army. So do you think that Russia will in any way want to compensate the family? Because if you're looking at it from their own end, it is actually in their constitution.
Absolutely. It's actually mandatory You see, they don't just recruit a soldier. When a soldier is recruited, he's supposed to confirm that he agrees. They are supposed to follow procedure and be able to use the similar standards, because you cannot recruit a soldier who's not willing to work with you, because he might end up being your enemy. And so the presumption is that the right procedure and all standards of recruitment were assured. And so we have a presumption that the army, the Russian army, has a mandate to compensate the families. And if they don't do that, our government has a responsibility to engage with them and find out what could be the genuine reasons they will not be able to compensate the family. Because the fact that they accepted the responsibility that, yes, this person died when he was serving the Russian army, it's confirmation enough that they agree with all the standards that they're supposed to treat a dying soldier, and also they're supposed to do to the remaining family. So the responsibility and the onus still lies on the Russian government to do the right thing. So if they don't do the right thing, our government will be held accountable to demand for the right thing to be done by the Russian government.
Well, there are several angles to this, of course. Speaking about Putin signing a law that allows prisoners to be conscripted to the war, there are, of course, exemptions to this case. But let's talk about the safety of Zambians in other countries. Do you think that the Zambians have been protected or have been preserved? What have the Zambian authorities done in this regard? Has any word been said about this?
Well, I don't think they're 100% safe and protected. However, in the case of Russia, we have a record where immediately the Russian government decided to stage a war, and it was dangerous for our students who were in Russia. Our Zambian government sent arrangements to retrieve them and have them coming back home. So all the students that were really communicated to in Russia were able to come back to Zambia because the safety was not assured. So generally, Zambian people in other countries, they don't really have 100% security assurance because countries vary. Some countries, they use racism to not care about other people. Some countries use inferiority complex. The same way we have cases, for example, in South Africa, where when people go there as foreigners, they are treated like, oh, they come to grab our jobs. And also, even other students from Zambia in other countries, they might face the similar treatment and also lack of assurance of security and safety.
I mean, ARMYTAGE, this is a very devastating situation, and one can only imagine what the NYIRENDA family are facing right now. Has there been any statement from them so far?
No. The only person that has given a statement is the minister, who has assured the nation that is going to constantly be engaging with the family and find out the way forward and how best they can accept this very sad development. And we are also expecting the minister to give us the response and the comments from the family. So far, we don't have a current family position statement in the media.
ARMYTAGE M MUMBWALI, thank you for joining us. We hope that we can have you again when we have an update on this story.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
You as well.
You too.
I mean, blessings. This is a very sad update. I was looking up the criteria for conscripting people into the army, and I was seeing that in Russia, once you've turned 18, a young male has turned 18, there's a procedure that you can automatically be conscripted into the army. So one wonders what happens to the dreams, what happens to the lives of these young people who maybe want to be something else. Whilst there are people who genuinely want to defend their country.
Yeah, I mean,
there are other people who don't want to.
Right, and I also remember that when the whole Russia-Ukraine crisis intensified, there was a law that everyone, just like you said, who turns 18, and you will see the tears in the mother's eyes because these people are young, and most of them don't even have the intention, just like you mentioned. So it really is devastating, even for the Russian citizens now, not to talk of the foreigners who just go there to study and then face a different fate.
And maybe now is the time for international human rights organizations to talk about the legality, fairness, or otherwise of the law being signed that allows Russia to conscript convicts into battle, making them fight. Is it really fair?